Hello, everybody out there in YouTube land. Happy Labor Day to everybody here on the 5th day of September 2016. My goodness, it's a pretty side here in Indiana. Sun shining, little breeze blowing, the leaves are twitching on the trees. See, the squirrels are playing out in the yard. Hope everybody's enjoying their holiday weekend and getting some good out of it. I guess there'll be a lot of picnics trying to take place today. It's usually about the last day for public pools to be open. They usually start closing down here about Labor Day. Kids going back to school. I'm at's already started back, but some other places they start right after Labor Day. So it's kind of the earmark of the end of summer, although it's not technically considered fall, I guess, until the equinox about the 20th or 21st of the month. Everybody likes to celebrate the Labor Day and take the Labor Day off, and a lot of people don't know what Labor Day is about. So I'm going to take this opportunity to kind of let you know, the history of it a little bit. I got this off of the U.S. or not U.S. DOL.gov, Department of Labor, and what they have to say about it is what it means. Labor Day is the first Monday in September. It's the creation of the labor movement, and it's dedicated to the social and economic achievements of American workers. It constitutes a yearly national tribute to the contributions workers have made to the strength, prosperity, and well-being of our country. The Labor Day legislation. Through the years, the nation gave increased emphasis to Labor Day. The first governmental recognition came through municipal ordinances passed during 1885 and 1886. From these, a movement developed to secure state legislation. The first state bill was introduced into New York legislation, but the first to become law was passed by Oregon on February the 21st, 1887. During the year, four more states, Colorado, Massachusetts, New Jersey, and New York, created the Labor Day holiday by legislative enactment. By the end of the decade, Connecticut, Nebraska, and Pennsylvania had followed suit. By 1894, 23 other states had adopted the holiday in honor of workers, and on June 28th of that year, Congress passed an act making the first Monday in September of each year a legal holiday in the District of Columbia and the territories. More than 100 years after the first Labor Day observance, there is still some doubt as to who first proposed the holiday for the workers. Some records show that Peter J. McGuire, General Secretary of the Brotherhood of Carpenters and Joiners and a co-founder of the American Federation of Labor, was first to suggest a date to honor those whom from the rude nature have delved and carved all the grandeur we behold. And that's a quote. But Peter McGuire's place in the Labor Day history has not gone unchallenged. Many believe that Matthew McGuire, a machinist, not Peter McGuire, founded the holiday. Recent researchers seem to support the contention that Matthew McGuire, later the secretary of Local 344, the International Association of Machinists in Paterson, New Jersey, proposed the holiday in 1882 while serving as secretary of the Central Labor Union in New York. What is clear is that the Central Labor Union adopted a Labor Day proposal and appointed a committee to plan a demonstration and a picnic. The first Labor Day holiday was celebrated on Tuesday, September the 5th of 1882 in New York City, in accordance with the plans of the Central Labor Union. The Central Labor Union held its second Labor Day holiday just a year later on September the 5th of 1883. In 1884, the first Monday in September was selected as the holiday as originally proposed, and the Central Labor Union urged similar organizations in other cities to follow the example of New York and celebrate working men's holiday on that date. The idea spread with the growth of labor organizations, and in 1885, Labor Day was celebrated in many industrial centers of the country. A nationwide holiday. The form that The observance and celebration of Labor Day was outlined in the first proposal of the holiday. A street parade to exhibit the public the strength and esprit de corps of the trade and labor organizations of the community, followed by a festival for the recreation and amusement of the workers and their families. This became the pattern for the celebrations of Labor Day. Speeches by prominent men and women were introduced later, as more emphasis was placed upon the economic and civic significance of the holiday. Still later, a resolution of the American Federation of Labor Convention of 1909, the Sunday preceding Labor Day, was adopted as Labor Sunday and dedicated to the spiritual and educational aspects of the labor movement. The character of the Labor Day celebration has undergone a change in recent years, especially in large industrial centers where mass displays and huge parades have proved a problem. This change, however, is more a shift in emphasis and medium of expression. Labor Day addresses by leading union officials, industrialists, educators, clerics, and government officials are given wide coverage in newspaper, radio, and television. The vital force of labor added materially to the highest standard of living and the greatest production the world has ever known, and has brought us closer to the realization of our traditional ideals of economic and political democracy. It is appropriate, therefore, that the nation pay tribute on Labor Day to the creator of so much of the nation's strength, freedom, and leadership, the American worker. So there you have a little history on it. If you didn't know what Labor Day was all about, I mean, it was so many years ago that it came about, and I don't believe that it's taught in schools. And you know, a lot of people say, hey, it's a holiday, you know, and they just take for granted what it's all about. But that's what we're celebrating right there today. It's not just the end of summer and kids going back to school. But I've got some news to bring to you today, and all these URLs are in the description of the video if you want to take a look at them yourself and read up a little more on them. But the first one that I have here is off of the Political Insider, and it's big news from the other day when Obama went to China. And it says, wait till you see how the Chinese humiliated President Obama. And it says, it's impossible to overstate just how little the rest of the world leaders respect President Obama. Whether it's Iran making a monkey of our men and women in the Navy, or Russian leaders perpetually toying with American leaders, it's don't take the man seriously. Another example of that occurred this past weekend when Chinese hosted the G20 summit and rolled out the red carpet for every world leader in attendance. Every world leader, that is, except President Obama. Used to provide a staircase for Obama to disembark the plane intentionally. And he was forced to exit Air Force One from a little used exit that observers refer to as the ass of the plane. Imagine that. An ass forced to exit a doorway which bears the same name. By The Guardian, Chinese leaders have been accused of delivering a calculated diplomatic snub to Barack Obama after the U.S. president was not provided with a staircase to leave his plane during his chaotic arrival in Hangzhou before the start of the G20. Chinese authorities have rolled out the red carpet for leaders including India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the Russian President Vladimir Putin, the South Korean President Brazil's President Michael Temer, and the British Prime Minister Theresa May, who touched down on Sunday morning. But the leader of the world's largest economy, who is on his final tour of Asia and was forced to disembark Air Force One through a little used exit in the plane's belly after no rolling staircase was provided when he landed in the eastern Chinese city on Saturday afternoon. When Obama did find his way onto the red carpet on the tarmac below, there were heated altercations between U.S. and Chinese officials, with one Chinese official caught on video shouting, "This is our country, this is our airport." So in this, if you would like to take a look at that. And it says here, symbolism like this is a major facet of Chinese culture. This snub was intentional and it was meant to insult the honor of President Obama. One expert who tracks Chinese political scene says China was attempting to show the world, look, we can make the American president go out of the ass of the plane. These things do not happen by mistake, says George Gordillo, Mexican former ambassador to China. Not with the Chinese. He added, it's a snub. It's a way of saying, you know, you're not that special to us. He has been all that special, or he hasn't been all that special to the Americans either. So there you have that article. Man, oh man, oh man. And I think that, you know, it's not just a signal to him, it's a signal to the American people that, look, you better be careful what you're putting in office over there. And the next one, all right, I'm not sure what this is doing here. It's got a mind of its own. Well, there's more than one way to skin a cat. We'll try doing it this way. No, that wasn't the right button to push. Bear with me, it's Labor Day. Right. Nope, that's still not the right button to push. We'll try something different here. Well, it'll cooperate just a little bit. Come on. Okay. Off of RT.com, and it says Japan wants British weaponry for South China Sea standoff. They've got a lot of action going on over there in the South China Sea right now. It says tensions in the South China Sea led Japan to splurge on British-made hardware to prepare for a confrontation with China. Recent saber rattling by North Korea has also given Japan cause to restock its armory. Antagonism between China and Japan over a contested island Pelago has the Japanese Defense Ministry chasing an injection of cash to buy a range of new kit. Rutgers reported on Wednesday that among other high-tech equipment, the Japanese are keen to purchase 11 AAV-7 amphibious assault craft produced by British arms giant BAE Systems. The move has been inspired by an ongoing confrontation between Japan and China over a set of small islands northeast of Taiwan known as and Senkakus. Over which both nations have staked a claim. The Defense Ministry is also trying to convince the government to free up around 100 billion yen, about $965 million, to buy a fleet of F-35 jets like those Britain is bringing into service, as well as Osprey V-22 tilt-rotor aircraft and Chinook helicopters. Also the agenda are new submarines and version of Global Hawk surveillance drone, which British Royal Aircraft already have in service. The pivot to Asia as the strategic reorganization of forces toward a rising China is known in academic circles, recently came under scrutiny when it was revealed that British troops were embedded with American units based in Okinawa. It emerged in mid-August that British Royal Marines secretly working in Okinawa with their U.S. counterparts may have breached a major between Japan and the U.S. A Freedom of Information request by the Japan Times revealed that 2 Royal Marine officers have been embedded with U.S. Marines at the base in Okinawa since January of 2015. Their presence is apparently in contravention of an international military deal that does not contain a provision for training of third-party forces. Writing in the Telegraph in July, King's College London history and foreign policy professor John Booth said that UK must prepare for its future role in Asia by tying itself more closely to the US global aims, and delicate Brexit negotiations are carried forward. In undergoing its own pivot to Asia, the UK is likely to face dilemmas as well as great opportunities which require careful consideration, he argued. The first question is whether Britain will want to expand the rent of its engagement with the region from trade also encompass Asian security and political questions, Boo wrote. Japan's post-war II pacifist foreign and defense policy was reformed in 2015 to allow intervention overseas, although the move met considerable resistance, with thousands taking to the streets in protest. The reform, personally advanced by Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, reversed Japan's essentially non-interventionist constitution, allowing the army to intervene in conflicts outside the country's borders, even if Japan is under no direct threat. So there you have an update on that. Let's see here. Back that up a little bit, since I had to change things around to actually get that to show up for us. And it's still not cooperating with me, for crying out loud. Holy smoke. Summer, and so everything's decided to act up. Okay, the next one that I have up here is off the Daily Mail, and this one is called Carnage in Calais. Horrific crash as jungle migrant gangs target tourists in cars in terrifying new ambush technique that left our journalists covered in blood after narrowly escaping death. Migrants from the Calais jungle camp are using deadly new tactics in their attempts to get to Britain. Ruthless gangs are deliberately causing crashes on the roads to the French port by hurling large objects at cars, then sneaking on to lorries caught up in the resulting tailbacks. And by lorries, they're talking about semi-trucks. Home Secretary Amber Rudd has spoken out after a team of Mail on Sunday journalists narrowly escaping death last week when 3 migrants threw a log at their car, forcing it into the path of a 38-ton juggernaut. After being briefed about the incident, Ms. Rudd issued a statement describing the development as extremely concerning. She added, it's vital that people feel safe when using the channel ports. This shows just how it is in all our interest to combat attempts to enter the UK illegally. Reporter Ben Ellery, age 32, and photographer Steve Burton and John McClellan were all injured when their British registered Audi swerved to avoid the missile. They then hit the lorry, sending their vehicle spinning out of control. The juggernaut dragged the car sideways for about 50 yards. 3 men were later rushed to a hospital for treatment. Ellery's head was gashed to the bone after it struck the steering wheel, and he required 8 stitches. McClellan, 60, was left with deep cuts to his face, and Burton, 57, suffered a gash on his head and severe bruising to his back. And there's some video in this and pictures if you want to see those of what all transpired. And then the article goes on. It says they had been investigating a shocking explosion of violence at the squalid migrant camp and the growing number of attacks on trucks heading for Britain. This sinister escalation risks the lives of thousands of British families using ferries and Channel Tunnel as they return from their summer holidays. And it comes ahead of planned go-slow protest by French truckers tomorrow that is likely to cause chaos for returning tourists. French Interior Minister Bernard Cazeneuve has pledged to close the camp, where numbers have swelled by 3,000 to more than 9,000, by the end of the year, but local residents want him to speed up the process. An extra 200 police officers have been dispatched to the area, and uniformed French troops have also started patrolling. A Calais police told the Mail on Sunday there had been a number of reported incidents of projectiles being thrown directly at cars so as to force them to stop. He said the menacing new tactic, along with blockades on the road, was of huge concern and was likely to result in very serious accidents. French officials and hospital staff confirmed that migrants are deliberately causing accidents to create traffic tailbacks on N216 motorway into the ferry port and the A16 to the Channel Tunnel. They are also putting up barricades. Quentin Pate, an emergency doctor at Calais Hospital, told the Mail on Sunday targeting motorists in order to cause accidents is a new tactic. A colleague treated someone recently who was injured when a migrant threw something at their vehicle near the port. Another doctor at the hospital revealed asylum seekers come into the hospital daily after being wounded in vicious knife fights in the camp. He said they come in every day with stab wounds. There is particularly a rivalry between the Afghans and the Sudanese. They are given priority because their wounds are so serious. A paramedic told our reporters, "This is happening all the time now. It's a war out there." Lorry drivers are experiencing soaring violence, threats, and intimidations as they pass through the French port, according to locals. Every night, squads of French riot police are involved in running battles with gangs. The police fire tear gas as they chase them from the edge of the main roads. Police say they are dealing with around 30 blockades each night. A team of highway workers toils through the night, constantly clearing debris from the motorways around the port and tunnel. Jean-Marc Piziu, I think it's pronounced, president of the Port of Calais, said migrants are throwing tree trunks, branches, and shopping carts at cars on the motorway. It is very dangerous. David Sengard, president of the local branch of France's National Federation of Lorry Drivers, said the violence of the migrants has not gone up by a notch, but by 10. Why do we have to risk our lives on the motorway just doing our job or simply because we're tourists? It's not acceptable. And there's more pictures and videos and stuff there. And then it goes on. It says 2 mile long, 2.5 million pound fence paid for by British taxpayers was erected in Calais last year to stop migrants jumping into the back of lorries while they were queuing to cross the channel. Now the migrants, mainly young men from Sudan, Ethiopia, and Afghanistan, are targeting vehicles on the motorway 2 miles away at the point where the fence ends. Our reporting team was investigating the worrying phenomenon when they came under attack in the early hours of Friday on the N216. Half an hour earlier, they saw police clearing metal crowd control barriers, which had been strewn across the A16. The night before, the team filmed 3 migrants as they brazenly tried to board a lorry that had stopped on the motorway because tree branches had been dragged across the carriageway. One migrant attempted to climb into the gap between the cab and the trailer of the lorry as 2 of his friends looked on, hoping he could smuggle himself into the UK. The shocked driver sounded his horn before deciding to drive over the branches to get away from the men who fled into the woods when police arrived. Regional Highway boss Xavier DeBarry said the gangs have tools, including chainsaws. There is a strategy to their concerted simultaneous assaults. He said it amounted to a sinister game and described how workers have come across a number of dead bodies of migrants who had been hit by lorries after they had run into the road. Frederick Houdecourt, a lorry driver from Belgium, said, "Every night we are coming up against migrants and our lives are put at risk. It's extremely dangerous." Record 1,900 French police are deployed in Calais, but Keith Vaz, chairman of the Home Affairs Committee, last night called for British police to be sent to France to help deal with violence. He said this is becoming a war zone with wanton violence being perpetuated against drivers. It's totally unacceptable that the situation has reached a crisis point. And then there's some other information in this. If you want to read more about it, it goes on for quite a ways, and there's more pictures and stuff in there. So if you want to read up more on that, but that's what's happening with these migrants trying to get from country to country, and something that we need to be looking out for. And Canada needs to be looking out for it. And Mexico needs to be looking out for it. And the next one we have here is off the All News Pipeline, and it says MSM busted on hot mic calling for blackout of positive Trump coverage at an African American church in Detroit. And this says, we can quote polling statistics on how general populace distrust the mainstream media, or how the public sees political bias in news coverage, or provide examples of the MSM selectively editing coverage, which in case of NBC News resulted in a public apology and dismissal of one of their producers, or how images have been seen in the news were sometimes digitally altered to make them more compelling. We could probably spend the whole day finding examples of this type of manipulation of the public, where mainstream media believes they have the right to influence public perception by determining what they want you to see, or in the case we're about to discuss, what they don't want you to see. But why quote examples when we finally hear the truth for ourselves? Yesterday, Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump attended Saturday service at Great Faith International Ministries in Detroit. The event was covered live via media pool feed, which means one media outlet provides the live stream coverage to most of the other news outlets. By all accounts, the visit to the African American church was successful, with Trump receiving standing ovation after his own remarks, and the optics described by those attending were mostly positive. Many watching the coverage live might have wondered why, after Trump was given a prayer shawl by Bishop Wayne T. Jackson during Jackson's blessing of Trump, the cameras suddenly went dark. It appears those running the pool feed decided to call for a blackout, forcing camera operators to shut it down, despite verbal objections from the camera operator who wished to finish covering Jackson's remarks. The feed did indeed go dark, cutting off Jackson's remarks to Trump, and every other station or independent journalist that was covering the event live using the Rutgers feed also went dark when they pulled the plug. Keynote from camera operator before he was forced to stop filming: "I'm shooting this. I don't care what they say. I'll take demotion for this. You?" Viewers may have to listen below a few times, as I had to catch the specific words that were caught on the hot mic. The pool feed producers evidently didn't know were on, but it's there. So the video of this is there if you want to listen to it. And it says Right Side Broadcasting was also part of the live feed pool, and they went dark as well. Then, after realizing they had suddenly gone dark, the narrator thanks folks for tuning in and explains that they are waiting for feeds to come back, and explains they're part of the media pool feed and they were getting the feed from Rutgers, stating that every other network carrying the live feed had also gone black. His remarks start at the 18-minute 49-second mark in the video below. There doesn't seem to be a thumbnail image on the video, but click start and the video will begin, is what it says here. So if you want to watch that video, there it is. It says, according to MSM reporters at the event, it was the campaign that insisted they pack up at one of the most poignant moments of the event, which Twitter users challenged, saying it makes no sense, and others saying it's a conspiracy theory to link Rutgers, or to think Rutgers made the decision to cut live feed because it was looking too positive for Trump. It is curious that the cameraman could be heard saying that he would take the demotion, because last I heard, if it was a campaign decision, no candidate in the campaign has authority to demote an employee of a media company, which does give a little more credence to those that claim this was a Rutgers decision, despite MSM reporters' claims to the contrary. So there you have that. It's how you're being manipulated by the mainstream. Next one that we have, here's off of Natural News. It says, watch out, Florida residents being fined for growing vegetables on their own property. And this says, Florida may be known for its tropical climate and spicy Latin American culture, but what it's not known for is the freedom to garden. The southeastern state continues to make headlines over the state government's contempt for front yard gardens. Tom Carroll and Hermine Ricketts had been cultivating their garden for 17 years when their hometown, Miami Shores, passed a new ordinance restricting vegetable growers to the backyard. The couples begrudgingly dug up their lush garden in August of 2013 after local officials threatened them with a daily fine of $50, according to the report by Fox News. Miami Shores fights longtime residents over front yard vegetable garden. The ordinance was a component of new zoning plan adopted by the town, which has a population of about 10,500 people and is located just north of Miami. The South Florida couple sued over the garden ban, arguing that it was a violation of the state's constitution because it included improper limits on their private property rights in violation of equal protection clause by singling out vegetables over other plants. The couple's attorney argued at a hearing in June of 2016 that banning them from growing vegetables anywhere on their property violated their constitutional rights. We're not saying you can do anything you want on your property, attorney Ari Bargill told Miami-Dade Circuit Judge Monica Gordo. We're simply saying that you can grow vegetables on your property and that it's protected by the Constitution. Growing vegetables is not a fundamental right, says community lawyer. Richard Serafan, the attorney for Miami Shores, countered that the new zoning rule was not irrational and treated all homeowners the same. Their front yard should be covered with grass, sod, or living ground cover, not further defined. It is no problem, he said, to have vegetable garden in the backyard, according to reports. There's certainly not fundamental right to grow vegetables in your front yard, Serafan said. Aesthetics and uniformity are legitimate government purposes. Not every property can lawfully be used for every purpose. On Thursday, August 25th, the Miami-Dade judge upheld the ruling, are definitely banning front yard gardens. Circuit Judge Monica Gordo ruled that while she doesn't understand the argument that front yard gardens destroy aesthetics in neighborhoods, the city nonetheless has the right to ban them, according to the Miami Herald. The next part of it says, Judge, city has every right to decide front yard veggies make a neighborhood ugly. Given the high degree of differences that must be given to democratically elected governmental body, Miami Shores' ban on vegetable gardens outside of the backyard passes unconstitutional scrutiny, wrote Gordo. The ruling is a big disappointment for a South Florida couple who love to grow a variety of organic vegetables, including okra, kale, lettuce, onions, spinach, and several other varieties of cabbage. I'm disappointed by today's ruling, said Ricketts, whose legal battle with the city lasted 3 long years. My garden not only provided us with food, but was also beautiful and added character to the community. I look forward to continuing this fight and ultimately winning so I can once again use my property productively and instead of being forced to have a useless lawn. Meanwhile, the upscale community maintains its right to regulate the area's aesthetic vegetables as fine as long as they're out of sight, said the community attorney at the hearing in June. A blow to tongue-tied. A blow to property rights. The only recourse the couple has is to ask the ordinance be revised or vote in new council members, said the judge. They can petition the village council to change the ordinance. They can also support candidates for the council who agree with their view that the ordinance should be repealed, wrote Gordo. If Hermine and Tom want to grow fruit or flowers or display pink flamingos, Miami Shores would have been completely fine with it, said the couple's lawyer, Ari Bargill, a representative from the Institute for Justice, a libertarian law firm. They should be equally free to grow food for their own consumption, which they did for 17 years before the village forced them to uproot the very source of their subsistence. The firm called the ruling a blow to property rights. So there you have that story. Sad. When the crap hits the fan and people get hungry, they ain't going to care if the food's grown in the ditch, let alone the front yard. And I'll tell you what, all them, I'd get names of every one of them city council members when they come around wanting something to eat when there ain't no food in the stores. They sure as heck wouldn't be getting it from me. Holy smoke. Next one we have here is off of the SputnikNews.com, and it says Putin hopes agreement with U.S. on Syria will be reached in days. A week after military incident between American and Iranian naval vessels in the Persian Gulf result in the firing of guns as a warning, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has called on the Islamic Republic to bolster its attack and defense capabilities to protect the country from the world's bullying powers. Khamenei's comments came during a speech at a high-profile military exposition on Tehran on Wednesday. In order to secure our population, our country, and our future, we have to increase our offensive capabilities as well as our defensive capabilities, he said, speaking before the country's military brass, cited by the Islamic Republic news agency. Speaking of proposed military enhancements, the top Iranic cleric highlighted that the state security is not established until hostile, oppressive powers feel the country's power, in an apparent reference to Western states. Under the conditions that the world's bullying powers have spread their umbrella of power and show no mercy and openly attack wedding ceremonies and hospitals on the pretext of combating terrorism and shed the blood of hundreds of innocent people without being accountable to any organization or body, Iran's defensive power must be increased so that the bullying powers would feel threatened, Khamenei stated. The announcement comes in wake incidents involving U.S. and Iranian militaries. Fourth, a U.S. Navy vessel fired 3 warning shots at an Iranian fast attack boat that had traveled within 200 yards of it. A day earlier, U.S. Central Command reported 2 Iranian ships had approached the American destroyer USS Nimitz at a distance of 300 yards near the Strait of Hormuz, an important oil trade route. Iran's defense ministry reported a violation of the Islamic Republic airspace by an American unmanned aerial vehicle. The drone left after a warning, a source in the military told Sputnik, but could have been downed in the event of repeated violations of Iran's sovereign airspace. Tensions between Washington and Tehran rose significantly recently after a thaw following the 2015 lifting of sanctions that the West had imposed on Iran. According to an unnamed U.S. defense official, confrontations between the U.S. and Iranian navies nearly doubled in the last 6 months of 2016, or in the first 6 months of 2016, compared to the same period in 2015, with 19 registered occasions. The Tehran Expo, at which Khamenei spoke, reflects a shift in military aspirations of Iran, according to IRNA. It aimed to highlight Iran's defense ministry and demonstrate the country's drones, missiles, as well as its Bavar 373 missile defense system. There you have some information there on all the bullying going on over there in Iran. Next one we have is off of BizPac Review, and it says Politico calls out Hillary for her Trump is crazy attacks and explains how they may backfire. The left-leaning Politico is taking aim at Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton's strategy and going after her Republican rival. Not only is her Donald Trump is crazy ad campaign wrong, but it could prove to be former Secretary of State's undoing, the news outlet said. The strategy to get voters to vote against the candidate's opponent worked in 1964. President Lyndon Johnson portrayed Senator Barry Goldwater as an extremist, a strategy known as front lash. We must make him ridiculous and a little scary, trigger happy, bomb thrower, radical, presidential advisor Jack Valini told not the nation's leader. He will sell TBA, cancel Social Security, abolish the government, stir trouble in NATO. He will herald of World War III, what they was trying to do to Goldwater. Although the front-lash strategy was successful in the short run, Johnson easily defeated Goldwater in a landslide. In the long run, it was a failure. By employing his Goldwater's crazy campaign, Johnson was able to bring Republican-leaning independents and even mainstream conservatives into the fold. He lost those very people when it came to getting legislation passed in Congress. Those independents and conservatives Johnson wooed over to his side converted to the Democratic Party, so he failed to build a coalition of the electorate for his great society. Voters rebelled against Johnson's handling of the Vietnam War and his civil rights legislation. As a result, many Democratic lawmakers lost their House and Senate seats in the 1966 midterm election, just as Barack Obama got a shellacking in 2010. While Clinton's Trump is crazy front-lash campaign may propel her to the White House, it won't get her the support she needs to build a coalition like the one Trump is building based on voter backlash, Politico noted. But the Republican candidate has tapped into powerful reserve of emerging backlash against immigration and the racial pluralism that results from it, backlash against free trade, the wreckage has on certain parts of the country, backlash against changing cultural mores, and backlash against the interventionist mindset that, to one degree or another, presidents from both parties have shared over the past quarter century. These anxieties aren't going away if Hillary Clinton sweeps to victory in November. In short, although Clinton may have her cake, it's doubtful that she'll be able to eat it. So there you have a take on her campaign strategy. BPR, BizPack Review. Wounded vet wore his Hillary for Prison t-shirt on a college campus. The response was disgraceful. Young disabled Marine veteran decided to wear his Hillary for Prison 2016 t-shirt to class at a junior college, and the reaction was surprising. Arthur III, a Marine Lance Corporal, was wounded 6 years ago in Afghanistan. His vehicle struck an improvised explosive device, which left him with constant headaches and traumatic brain injury. He's now working toward a degree at St. Louis Community College. MacArthur spoke to Independent Journal Review about the day he wore his t-shirt, and he says, "I was wearing my Hillary for Prison 2016 shirt. I wear the shirt for two reasons. One, to stir the pot, and two, because I actually believe that Hillary is not above the law and should be accountable for her actions and pay the piper for her wrongdoings just like every other criminal." To his surprise, fellow students, made up mostly of millennials, reacted negatively to the shirt's message, he told IJ Review. "From the kids at school, I mostly got looks, a couple of smiles. One girl asked me if I would rather have a racist as a president. An African-American boy told me that Trump supports slavery. Another girl told me her boyfriend was Mexican and that Trump was going to send him back to Mexico, but when I asked her where he was born, she said Texas." Keep in mind, these are college students. The most ridiculous student reaction came from someone who apparently hasn't been keeping track of what's going on with Clinton's emails and Clinton Foundation. MacArthur told the publication, "The best one of the day was a young man with a nice set of headphones and an iPhone. He told me that I shouldn't wear that shirt because it was offensive. And I asked why. And he said that Hillary had done nothing to warrant her going to prison and that if Trump gets elected, he's going to take his mom off welfare." Surprise of them all was how the faculty reacted. To my surprise, out of the 5 teachers who said anything, only one comment was negative. The comments ranged from "nice shirt" to "I was hoping that didn't say Hillary for president." The negative comment was simply, "Right." Go figure. Apparently, St. Louis Community College decided to buck the trend of hiring mostly leftist loon faculty. Refreshing. Shame they can't teach their students anything. Oh my goodness. I mean, I have to assume that those at the college came out of a public school. Oh my gosh, you can't make this stuff up. Second one is off of the Conservative Constitutionalist, and it says California Muslim kills his mother, rips her heart out, and then does something even sicker to her body. I'll get it to scroll up here. Going a little slow. There we go. Omar Mark Pettin. Well, now it scrolled too much. Goodness gracious, come on. Omar Mark Pettigan, age 31, and a California Muslim, has done something unthinkable. It defies any boundaries of all things human. Even the sickest, most deranged animal would not do what he did to his own mother at that. Pettigan's father had not heard from his ex-wife, Pettigan's mother, for quite some time, so he called authorities and asked them to perform a welfare check. His ex-wife had been a high school teacher in California. Obviously, the man knew something was wrong with his son and that he posed a danger to his mother, or he would not have made the call. When police arrived at Pettigan's mother's home, they found her corpse lying on the blood-soaked carpet. Her heart had been ripped out of her body, and forensics teams would later find Pettigan's semen all over her body. Pettigan explained that after he killed his mother, cut out her heart, he masturbated all over her body because he needed the release. The story goes to show the gruesomeness posed by those who follow the cult of hate and death. The incident happened back in September of 2018. We're willing to bet this is the first time you've heard of it. And I'm right, this is the first time I heard of it. I'll give you any idea what these people are about. The next one we have here is off of freebeacon.com. Iranian, come on, tongue, work with me. Iran satellite launch prompts fear of long-range ballistic missile attack. It was announced on Tuesday that the country is preparing to launch 3 new satellites into space, renewing concerns from defense experts about Iran's ongoing research into long-range ballistic missile technology that could help it fire a nuclear weapon at Western nations. Mohsen Bahrami, the director of Iran's space agency, which has long been suspected of providing cover for weapons research, announced that Iran would launch its newest satellite, dubbed Friendship, later this year. The Dostai, or Friendship satellite, built by experts at Sharif University of Technology, is the first satellite which will be launched in the second half of this Iranian year, which began on March the 20th. Bahrami was quoted as saying by the country's state-controlled press. Experts and former U.S. officials told the Washington Free Beacon that the test is likely a cover for Iran to pursue illicit intercontinental ballistic missile technology, which could enable Islamic Republic to fire a nuclear weapon over great distance. Asked about the reports on Tuesday, a State Department spokesman told the Free Beacon that it will not take a position on the launch before it has occurred. We're not going to speculate on the specifics of something that hasn't happened yet, the spokesman said. Our long-standing concerns regarding Iran's ballistic missile developments and are shared by the international community. If there are specific launches or other actions that are inconsistent with UN Security Council resolutions, we will address them through the appropriate channels, the spokesman continued, and we will continue to work with our partners and take necessary unilateral actions to counter ongoing threats from Iranian's ballistic missile program. Efforts are also being made to launch 2 other satellites within the next year, according to the announcement, which has raised concerns among Western defense experts about the Islamic Republic's pursuit of technology that would enable it to fire nuclear weapons over great distances. Iran has always used its satellite program as cover for developing an intercontinental ballistic missile capability. The Defense Ministry has also bragged that it made its UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, satellite guided in order to extend their range and bypass the need for line of sight control, said Michael Rubin, a former Pentagon official and expert on rogue regimes. Iran's interest in technology, combined with its newfound freedom under last summer's nuclear agreement, should raise red flags on the international stage, Rubin said. Add to that mix that Iran can trade and sell both technologies with North Korea in exchange for inspection-proof nuclear laboratory space, Rubin said. In effect, in a threefer for the Islamic Republic, all courtesy of the noxious mix of Obama's ambition and Secretary of State John Kerry's incompetence. Iranian officials further disclosed over the weekend that construction had been on an advanced satellite with remote sensing capabilities. U.S. officials have said that Iran's space research could be applied to the construction of intercontinental ballistic missiles, work that is prohibited under the United Nations resolution governing the nuclear agreement. Iran has successfully orbited satellites and announced plans to orbit a larger satellite using a space launch vehicle, the Samora, that could be capable of intercontinental ballistic missile ranges if configured as such. Vice Admiral J.D. Searing, head of the U.S. Missile Defense Agency, disclosed in April. Searing's comment came on the heels of Iran's last test of its long-range Samora rocket. Iranians test firing of ballistic missiles has emerged as a hot button issue in recent months as Obama administration has worked against claims that the tests violate nuclear deal. The Obama administration has claimed that the tests violate the agreement in spirit only. The U.S. intelligence community has emphasized Iran's desire to acquire ballistic technology. Tehran has placed significant emphasis on developing and fielding ballistic missiles to counter perceived threats from Israel and U.S. and allied forces in the Middle East and to project power. U.S. defense officials disclosed in a 2014-2015 threat assessment. Iran has substantial inventory of missiles capable of reaching targets throughout the region, including U.S. military bases in Israel, and the regime continues to develop more sophisticated missiles, the report adds. Iran has publicly stated it intends to launch a space launch vehicle as early as 2015, which could be capable of intercontinental ballistic missile ranges if configured as such. Behnam B. Tablu, a senior Iran analyst at the Foundation for Defense Democracies, told the Free Beacon that the entities responsible for building Iran's space satellites have close ties to the country's military industry. Iran's desire to continue launching new satellites into space should be a point of concern to American officials, Tablu said. To me, this does not merely appear to be an instance of developing country attempt to produce technologies to boost its status or prestige. Rather, it may have very real security application. Many scholars and missile analysts expected Iran's overly adventurous space program to have been a cover to study, test, and eventually employ the technologies associated with production of an intercontinental ballistic missile. The upcoming test could be a sign that Iran is seeking to refine its ballistic technologies, raising concerns on military front. It can be inferred that unless Tehran has configured existing space launch vehicles, it will either be the Sapphire or the, I guess that's how it's pronounced, carrier rockets, Tablu said. As such, repeated testing of one launch vehicle by Tehran may be an attempt to refine existing issues with the rocket stage process. You have that information. Let's see here. The next one that we have, well, good golly, she's just taking her time. Well, all right, there we go. BizPack Review says FBI notes include actual oh crap moment quote, but really there's nothing to see. It says, in what is being characterized as an oh crap moment, a staffer admitted that he deleted some of Hillary Clinton's emails after the House Select Committee on Benghazi had ordered her emails to be preserved. Other eye-opening details found in documents released Friday by the Federal Bureau of Investigation showed that Clinton had 13 mobile devices during her time as Secretary of State, plus 5 iPads, and that she may have personally deleted some of the emails. The FBI said it was releasing the 58 pages of material in the interest of transparency. And there's some Twitter information there if you want to read up on that. It says here the Wall Street Journal offered more detail on that moment. The FBI report also said that a technical staffer at the company helping maintain Mrs. Clinton's email server told law enforcement officials that he had that moment when he realized he had forgot to delete an archive of Mrs. Clinton's emails from his company's system, as had been requested by Mrs. Clinton's attorney. 2014. After Mrs. Clinton's private email server became public in 2015, the staffer realized that he had never made the deletion and took steps to purge the files. That occurred after the Republican-led House Benghazi Committee had ordered Mrs. Clinton's emails preserved in March of 2015. Mrs. Clinton herself said that months she wanted her emails released to the public. The FBI said that in the report, Mrs. Clinton stated she never deleted, nor did she instruct anyone to delete her emails to avoid complying with the Freedom of Information Act, state or FBI requests for information. The FBI report goes on to say that the Bureau does not have any of the 13 devices in its possession and could not make determination as to whether any of the devices were subject to compromise. Team Hillary continues to insist there's nothing to see here. We are pleased that the FBI has released the materials from Hillary Clinton's interview as we had requested. Clinton campaign spokesman Brian Fallon said, according to the Journal, while her use of a single email account was clearly a mistake and she has taken responsibility for it, these materials make clear why the Justice Department believed there was no basis to move forward with the case. GOP rival Donald Trump remains perplexed over how Clinton has escaped accountability for her actions. After reading these documents, I really don't understand how she was able to get away from prosecution, Trump said in a statement. So there you have that information. Well, I'll tell you how. Money talks. So there you have that. Good gravy. I'll tell you what. You know, I'll tell you, there was something that struck me the other day when I was talking about that gold nugget that one feller found under the ground there, you know, and dug that up. And then I covered another story about a guy that pulled up a 77-pound pearl out of the ocean and kept it under his bed as a good luck charm. When he had to sell it, it was worth over $1 million. And I was thinking about unseen things and how folks, you know, they don't see things and they don't see them for what they are a lot of times. And it kind of brought me to this. I found this quote by a lady named Joyce Meyer, and it says, consider a tree for a moment. As beautiful as trees are to look at, we don't see what goes on underground as they grow roots. Trees must develop deep roots in order to grow strong and produce their beauty. But we don't see the roots. We just see and enjoy the beauty. In much the same way, what goes on inside of us is like the roots of a tree. And you know that's true. A lot of times we just take people at face value and we don't see what's going on inside of them. We don't see their roots. We don't see what actually makes them tick. And a lot of us are very self-centered, and all we think about is us. S. For me. And we don't think about other people. We don't think about their feelings. We don't think about what they may be going through. We don't have any empathy anymore for people. And it's something that we probably all need to work on. Everybody has a path they're on, and it's not your path, and you can't walk their path for them. They can't walk your path for you. You can share a little bit of it once in a while, you know, if you need a helping hand or if they need a helping hand, but you can't walk a path for somebody. And everybody just needs to kind of take time out. Here we are on a holiday and just reflect a little bit, you know, think about your friends or your family or the people that are around you, or even people that you have had relationships in the past, and you know, things that may have gone wrong with those friendships or those relationships, and just think about them a little bit, and that you're not taking the other person's roots into consideration. Maybe if you stop and think about their roots a little bit, it'll give you a little more introspection on, you know, what's going on with them, and maybe you'll be a little more empathetic to whatever their position is. Doesn't mean that you got to bend over backwards and be a doormat and let people walk all over you, but at least maybe you'll understand a little bit more about where they're coming from and be a little more sympathetic to their situation. Just something to think about. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful Labor Day. Get out today, kick off your shoes, stick your feet down in the grass, take a breath of fresh air, ground yourself, balance yourself, get away from the bad news that's going on in the world for a little bit. Enjoy your surroundings. Check out a tree. Look at the roots. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.